Hello, I'm Dan Alexander. Thanks for joining me on another one of my webcast episodes. I appreciate it. I hope you're wearing one of these masks. It's crazy out there. Stay healthy. Today, I'd like to finish talking about equalizers. I did a previous video speaking about definitions of terms. So I'm not going to define terms here. If you need definitions, you could refer to that. In any case, I want to talk about three different kinds of equalizers that we commonly encounter in the recording situation. Fixed selectable frequency EQs, swept EQs, and parametric EQs. Older EQ types that one would find on most vintage consoles or in Pultecs and API 550 equalizers and things of that nature, Neve input modules. They have selectable frequencies. The low end would have a certain number of frequencies, the mid-range and the high end. And that's what you would have. Let me pause this. Here's a picture of a Pultec EQP1A. I'm sure you're familiar, at least with the name Pultec. And you can see that here in the low end, the equalizer has 20, 30, 60, and 100 cycles selectable. In the high end, it's got 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, 12, and 16. And also this bandwidth control goes from sharp to broad. That's only affecting the high frequency boost. So when you select these frequencies, then, you know, that's what you're going to get. And these are basically passive filters, which are followed by a tube amplifier. There's other, you know, similar designs using solid state amplifiers. And you'll find some type of similar EQ available on most any recording console made before about 1975 or 77, something like that. Okay, so hold on just one second. I'm going to just pause this for 1 second here. Where am I? Okay. Okay, so here, this is the front panel from an API 554 equalizer. This is a swept frequency EQ. Each one of these three bands has two controls. Well, actually they have three, but in a normal swept EQ, it would just have two controls. One would be the frequency selection, and one would be the amount of plus and minus. So, for example, you can see on the bottom of the EQ, it goes from 30 up to 600 cycles. The mid-range goes from 200 up to 5,000 cycles. And the high end goes from, it looks like 600 up to 16,000 cycles. Maybe it's 800, I can't quite make it out. Anyways, the frequency selection is continuously variable. Those are pots, not switches. So you can, as you turn it, the frequency selection varies in that range. Now, each one of these also has these little switches here. In the low end, you have selectable bell-shaped, shelving, or peaking. In the mid-range, you have bell-shaped or peaking. And in the high range, you have bell-shaped, shelving and peaking as well. So that varies the Q width of the swept EQ. So this is a very variable equalizer. There are many examples of swept EQs. The later Helios modules were most often swept. and yeah, it's a great deal more variable than a fixed frequency equalizer. That doesn't necessarily mean that it sounds better. So, okay, so hold on a second. I'm going to bring up a different picture here. So, here is a uh, half of a GML Stereo Parametric EQ, one of the great EQs in the industry. And what you'll see here is that each side, this is one side of the equalizer, and it has 5 bands. And each one of these bands has 3 controls that are all continuously variable. The amount of plus and minus is variable, the frequency selection is variable, and the Q width is variable. So you can vary it anywhere from shelving all the way to a very narrow filter. And it's a, you can get into some real trouble with one of these, but it is an extraordinary device. And George Massenburg is a genius. So this is a wonderful device. What I can say about these 3 different kinds of EQs is that in general, and I'm not a tech, but in general, selectable frequency equalizers are going to have less circuitry than either swept or parametric EQs. And although there's no guarantee that a fixed selectable frequency EQ is going to sound better than any particular parametric EQ. It's not, there's some that are great and some that are not so great, and all kinds of variations in between. And so, but in general, the less circuitry that you have in a piece of equipment, the chances of it sounding good are improved. So parametric equalizers can sometimes sound somewhat electronic, as opposed to something like a Pultec. It sounds very natural. And that doesn't apply to everything by any means, and a GML EQ is a spectacular sounding device. So anyways, that's about it. That's all I can tell you. And I appreciate you checking in here, and do me a big favor and please subscribe to this channel. I'd appreciate it. All right. You have a great day, and stay healthy.